Cowboys Nation, the balance of power inside the NFC East has shifted in a big way over the last stretch. And even when the move does not involve Dallas directly, the ripple effects are impossible to ignore. The Giants landing John Harbaugh as their new head coach instantly raises the floor and the ceiling for that franchise. This is not a developmental hire or a gamble on upside. This is an established leader with a proven track record, someone who commands respect the moment he walks into the building. From a division standpoint, that means tougher games, tighter margins, and far less room for Dallas to rely on talent alone to separate itself. Looking at it from the Cowboys' perspective, this hire matters because it reshapes the competitive environment. The Giants are no longer just rebuilding or experimenting. They're signaling urgency and seriousness, and that forces everyone else in the division to match that energy. Whether it is Dallas, Philadelphia, or Washington, the bar has been raised. The Giants are expected to be more disciplined, more physical, and far more consistent week to week. That matters when you play them twice every season and when postseason positioning can come down to 1 or 2 games. This move also creates a domino effect across coaching staffs, especially on the defensive side of the ball. When a high-profile head coach steps into a new building, the assistant market gets chaotic quickly. Coordinators, position coaches, and rising assistants suddenly have more options, more leverage, and more competition. That reality directly impacts Dallas, which is still deep in its own search for a defensive coordinator. Just because the Cowboys were early on certain interviews does not mean those candidates are locked in or unavailable to others. One of the more interesting wrinkles here involves interim defensive coordinators and assistants currently tied to other organizations. Because of technicalities in job titles and interim designations, some candidates cannot be blocked from interviews. That opens doors that normally would not exist this early in the process. For Dallas, that means opportunities, but it also means pressure. Other teams are fishing in the same waters, and the moment a candidate impresses, they're no longer exclusive to one search. This is where patience becomes essential, even if it feels uncomfortable. The Cowboys are not searching in a vacuum. There are at least double-digit defensive coordinator openings around the league, and that number could grow depending on how head coaching decisions shake out. The overlap is unavoidable. Strong candidates will be pulled in multiple directions, and interviews will not follow a neat or predictable order. That is the cost of doing a legitimate search instead of a symbolic one. What stands out so far is that Dallas appears to be casting a wider net than it has in years. This is not a quick check-the-box process. They're bringing in coaches with different backgrounds, different philosophies, and different levels of experience. Some have heavy NFL resumes, others come from college or hybrid roles, and some are position coaches ready for a bigger leap. That variety suggests that the Cowboys are genuinely evaluating what type of defense they want to become, not just who is familiar or convenient. Another layer to this is the influence of the current coaching staff. There is no denying that certain names align closely with the vision of the head coach. That is normal in the league. Every head coach wants a coordinator they trust and communicate with easily. The key question is whether that comfort is balanced with innovation and adaptability. Early signs suggest Dallas is at least open to listening beyond its immediate circle, which is a meaningful change from past cycles. One candidate drawing attention brings a background rooted in defensive line play and run game coordination. That matters because Dallas has talent up front, but consistency has been an issue. A coordinator who prioritizes physicality, gap discipline, and situational awareness could unlock more from the roster without requiring massive personnel changes. Experience with successful defensive systems also carries weight, especially when that experience comes from organizations known for structure and accountability. It is also worth noting that not every interview request is being approved. Some teams are holding tight to their assistants, especially when they anticipate internal promotions or future opportunities. That creates another layer of timing and strategy for Dallas. A candidate unavailable today might become accessible later, and that requires flexibility rather than urgency-driven decisions. Amid all of this, one name continues to loom over the entire process. Flores remains the most coveted defensive mind on the market. His reputation around the league is elite, and his results speak for themselves. If he becomes available, every team searching for a defensive coordinator will want a conversation. That alone explains why his situation feels different from the rest. This is not a standard interview. This is a potential franchise-altering hire on one side of the ball. The absence of an immediate interview does not necessarily mean disinterest. There are strategic reasons why top-tier candidates might enter the process later. When a coach is also being considered for head coaching roles, timelines change. Virtual interviews, in-person meetings, and negotiation phases do not always align with the broader candidate pool. Sometimes patience is not hesitation, but positioning. What's clear is that Dallas is operating in phases. The early stage has focused on gathering information, understanding philosophies, and identifying fits. That stage naturally involves virtual meetings and broad outreach. The next phase, which has not fully arrived yet, will narrow the field and bring more serious, in-depth discussions. That is typically when the biggest names enter the room, when leverage shifts, and when decisions start to crystallize. This process feels unfamiliar because Dallas has not truly done it this way in a long time. For years, coordinator searches were brief and predictable. The team identified its preferred candidate early and moved quickly. This time, the approach is slower, wider, and more deliberate. That does not guarantee success, but it does suggest an awareness that the previous model had limitations. As the rest of the league finishes sorting out head coaching hires, the coordinator market is going to explode. More openings will appear, competition will intensify, and top candidates will have choices. Dallas cannot afford to panic, but it also cannot afford to drift. The balance between patience and decisiveness will define how this search ultimately plays out, especially with the division getting stronger and expectations staying sky high. As the defensive coordinator search continues to unfold, the tension around it keeps growing, not because Dallas is standing still, but because of how many moving parts exist at the same time. Every day that passes reshapes the board just a little more. Coaches take new jobs, interviews happen quietly, and priorities shift behind closed doors. From the outside, it can feel slow, but inside NFL buildings, this is usually the most delicate stage, where information matters more than speed. One thing that cannot be ignored is how competitive this particular offseason is for defensive minds. The league is trending offense-heavy, which only increases the value of coordinators who can consistently disrupt quarterbacks, disguise coverages, and adapt week to week. Teams are no longer just looking for someone who can call plays. They want teachers, leaders, and problem solvers. That reality explains why so many franchises are willing to wait, revisit candidates, and even circle back later if the timing becomes right. For Dallas, this search carries extra weight because of recent postseason frustrations. The defense has shown flashes of dominance, but also moments where it struggled to adjust when opponents changed tempo or attacked specific weaknesses. The next coordinator is not just filling a vacancy. He is being asked to elevate a unit that already has star power and turn it into something more reliable when the pressure is highest. That is not a small ask, and it is not something you rush through. Flores remains central to that conversation, even without an official interview yet. His name carries gravity around the league because of what his defenses have consistently done to elite offenses. Preparation, discipline, and controlled aggression define his approach. That kind of identity is attractive to any team, especially one with playoff aspirations. At the same time, Flores represents a complex decision. His presence would reshape the defensive culture immediately, and not every organization is equally comfortable with that level of change. There is also the reality that Flores may not even be available when Dallas reaches the final stages of its process. Head coaching opportunities still exist, and if one opens for him, the conversation ends quickly. Even if that does not happen, multiple teams would compete aggressively to bring him in. That kind of bidding environment forces front offices to be realistic about outcomes, not just hopeful. That is why the broader pool of candidates matters so much. Dallas has shown interest in coaches with different backgrounds, including those who have coordinated specific position groups at a high level. Defensive line-focused coaches, in particular, bring an intriguing angle. Controlling the line of scrimmage remains one of the most reliable ways to dictate games, especially in the playoffs. A coordinator who builds everything from that foundation can simplify things for linebackers and defensive backs, allowing athleticism to shine without overexposure. Another underappreciated factor is communication. Modern defenses are complex, filled with checks, rotations, and situational calls. The best coordinators are not just brilliant tacticians, but clear communicators. They translate scheme into action quickly, especially for younger players. Dallas has invested heavily in defensive talent through the draft, and maximizing that investment depends on teaching as much as play calling. The interview format itself also matters more than fans often realize. Virtual interviews are useful for philosophy and vision, but in-person meetings are where trust is built. That is where coaches explain how they handle adversity, manage staff dynamics, and respond when things go wrong. Those conversations tend to happen later, once teams feel confident they're talking to the right people. Dallas appears to be moving toward that stage, even if it has not arrived yet publicly. Meanwhile, other franchises are operating on different timelines. Some have already filled coordinator roles, while others are waiting for head coaching dominoes to fall. That uneven pace can create confusion, but it also creates opportunity. A candidate overlooked early can become highly attractive once circumstances change. Flexibility is often rewarded in these cycles, especially for teams willing to revisit assumptions. Another layer to this search is internal alignment. The defensive coordinator does not operate in isolation. He works alongside the head coach, offensive coordinator, and front office. Philosophical clashes can derail even talented staffs. That is why interviews often focus as much on collaboration as on scheme. Dallas has to ensure that whoever takes the job fits within the broader vision of how the team wants to play complementary football. That vision includes situational defense, something that has haunted the Cowboys at times. Third downs, red zone possessions, and late-game adjustments separate good defenses from elite ones. The next coordinator must demonstrate a clear plan for those moments. That is not always obvious on a resume, which is why deeper evaluation matters. As the league heads toward a phase where coordinator hiring accelerates, the pressure will increase. Fans will demand answers, analysts will speculate, and every delay will be scrutinized. But internally, the focus remains on getting it right rather than getting it fast. Dallas understands that this hire will shape not just one season, but the identity of the defense for years to come. The stakes are amplified by the direction of the division. With rivals improving and coaching staff stabilizing, there is little margin for missteps. Dallas still has one of the most talented rosters in the conference, but talent alone is no longer enough. Execution, adaptability, and leadership on the defensive side will define how far this team can realistically go. As names continue to surface and interviews progress, clarity will eventually emerge. The process may feel messy, but that is often the nature of meaningful change. The Cowboys are navigating unfamiliar territory, balancing patience with urgency, and weighing comfort against potential. How they manage this moment will tell us a lot about where this franchise believes it truly stands right now. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Dallas Cowboys. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. Is it finally time to say goodbye to Dallas? Tensions appear to be boiling over in Cowboy country as whispers emerge of a brewing storm between the team's head coach, Brian Schottenheimer, and one of the franchise's brightest stars. According to sources close to the organization, Schottenheimer has recently made the shocking decision to bench the player in question, a move that has sent shockwaves through the locker room and ignited a firestorm among fans. While the reasons behind the benching remain unclear, insiders suggest that the coach is attempting to send a message, whether about discipline, performance, or team culture. The plot thickens as the player's agent reportedly wasted no time, publicly demanding an immediate trade. The firm's stance has fueled speculation that negotiations could escalate quickly, potentially shaking up the league before the season even reaches its peak. Sources hint that rival teams have already begun weighing their options, with some quietly exploring what it would take to bring the star on board. The stakes couldn't be higher. A trade of this magnitude would not only reshape Dallas' offensive strategy, but also alter the balance of power across the division. Fans have taken to social media in droves, voicing outrage, disbelief, and in some cases, sympathy for both sides. Commentators are already debating whether Schottenheimer's decision is a calculated risk or a potential misstep that could haunt the team. Meanwhile, speculation about potential trade destinations runs rampant, with names of perennial contenders and dark horse teams alike surfacing as plausible landing spots. The drama surrounding this benching underscores the delicate balancing act between coaching authority and player star power, a tension that has defined some of the NFL's most memorable moments. As the rumor mill spins, one thing is clear. Dallas may be on the verge of a seismic shift. Whether the player will eventually return to the field, be shipped to a new team, or remain a contentious figure on the sidelines, the situation has already ignited passionate debate. For now, the Cowboys fan base is left in suspense, watching closely as a potential blockbuster move threatens to reshape the team's future and redefine the narrative of a season that is already proving unpredictable. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Dallas Cowboys, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.